There we go. How we all doing today? Welcome back to Just My Stupid Opinion, episode 78. And so the main thing we're going to be talking about today has to do with the Trudeau cabinet shuffle. But before I get into that, I just had a few last minute thoughts on what ended up going down with Christine Moore, who is a NDP member of Parliament. And one second, cigarette first. So what ended up going on with Christine Moore was, I guess it was about beginning of May or somewhere around there. She ended up getting accused by a Canadian veteran of abusing her power. And pretty much she said that she ended up following him around, ended up harassing him. So she ended up getting suspended from the NDP caucus. Now, recently, over the last few days, the NDP had finished their third-party investigation into the allegations against Christine Moore, found that she did no wrongdoing, and they ended up clearing her of any wrongdoing, and she has now been reinstated into the caucus. And I had a few thoughts about that. Now, first of all, I'm all for due process, even in politics, even though this has been an idea that they've been toying with over the last little bit. I remember that just after Patrick Brown ended up getting accused and thrown out of his leadership position for the Progressive Conservatives, there was some people that were considering the idea that politics doesn't have due process, and I'm completely against this. I think there absolutely has to be a form of due process. Absolutely. But there's been some inconsistencies between the two stories that are being told. And I'm not 100% sure who I believe and who I disbelieve between the two, between Glenn Kirkland, the Canadian veteran who's accusing her of wrongdoing, and also of Christine Moore. Now, I found some problems with Christine Moore because some of the things she said just didn't seem to add up. For instance, one thing that she was saying is one of the allegations was that after Christine Moore had invited him back to her office after he gave a testimony in front of the National Security Committee, the allegation is that she started pouring him drinks. She started pouring him drinks, and she was coming on to him. Eventually, he made his way out. He left the whole her office. Now, her accusation was the opposite. Actually, she was saying that he was coming on to her, and that she was kind of game for it, but then she had to go vote. Now, my problem is that there's no denying the fact that she was that she was there that day, that she was at Parliament. She was part of the committee. She's on record being there. You can find videos of her as well as transcripts of that situation. However, one of the problems that I do have is her allegation was because after Kirkland left, he said that she ended up following him back to his hotel room, and eventually they spent the night together. They did sleep together, but she's denying at least that she followed him back because she said that she was in Parliament. She had to vote. In fact, this is one of the reasons that when they were in her office, she ended up saying, "No, not right now. I have to go vote." But my problem is that I can't, even like it's some of the articles that came out after this that were in defense of her, they ended up saying that her records show that she was at Parliament until 10:40, and then she said then she ended up showing up at his apartment at his hotel room by midnight. Now, there's a couple problems with this. First of all, is because he was staying at the Lord Elgin Hotel. Now, the Lord Elgin Hotel, even if you're walking from Parliament, it's maybe a 5-minute walk. So for her to go from leave to be there till 10:40 and then not showing up till midnight doesn't really add up for me. Plus, the other thing is as I was looking into more of the transcripts, I couldn't find any evidence of her being there past the allotted time. In fact, the last thing I could find of her was about 2 p.m. or so in the afternoon. So this is one of the, hold on, we'll see here. So this is actually, I believe we have the screen, yeah. As we can see here, this is Wednesday, June 5th, 2013. This was the day that they ended up meeting, where Glenn Kirkland and Christine Moore ended up meeting and where everything ended up going down. Now, as we see here on the scroll bar on the left, we can see that Christine Moore is present on that day. But as far as I can tell, like, we have a few different things she's participated in. The last thing I can find is about just a little after 2 p.m., as we can see here, and then it's her transcript of everything's going on. Even if we look through the other stuff that she had, she's 3. It's 208, 208. The first one was 208, second one was 208, province of Quebec, 208. So that's the last I could find of her. The other problem I did have is this is from openparliament.ca, and it has everything that they did on the agenda for that day. Now, Parliament did go pretty late that day. It went past midnight, but she said by about 6:30 she had to be gone in order to vote. Now, here's the thing about that is I can't find anything that puts voting starting at 6:30 p.m. As we go to the motion of papers, which will take us down, we can see that that's about 3:45 p.m. on the day. Now, so we did motion of papers. Now we go to Safe Drinking Water for First Nations Act. That took place at 9:50 p.m. So there's this gap in between where she was saying that she had to be in Parliament to vote, and I just can't find it. I just can't find these records that people are talking about, and nobody's linked to these articles. No one's released these articles saying that she was there until 10:40 p.m. My cigarette went out. So it's just, her timeline to me is not adding up. On the flip side, when we're talking about Glenn Kirkland, the one thing to me that seemed a little bit suspicious is it seemed to me that when it was going through this whole situation, when he gave a few different testimonies on different news sources. But my problem is with it, and maybe it just has more to do with the fact that the guy was not really in the spotlight, not really used to talking to the media. Maybe this is something to do with it. But when I was listening through to his different interviews, a lot of the things he said seemed cookie-cuttered. He was repeating the same thing over and over. One thing in particular, which I do agree with him on, I do agree that what he said in this situation, which he said that if the situation was reversed, he was a woman, Christine Moore was a man, then it would have been a very different situation that we're talking about. He's absolutely right about this. But this is something he said in, I think I've seen about 4 different interviews with him, and he said in every single one, he said a lot of the same things, which to me just, if you're going to repeat yourself and it looks like you're running off a script, it kind of looks suspicious to me. So that was, when it came to Glenn Kirkland, that to me was a little bit weird. I don't know who I really believe in the whole situation. There are some photos going back where it shows them together. There was a photo that was released from about July 9th, 2013, where they're standing in, I believe it is Glenn Kirkland's home. And you see both of them smiling there. Now, neither has denied that she was there on that day. But the other thing is, too, is she apparently gave... when we're talking about Christine Moore, she gave an interview to the Canadian press where she said that she released a plane ticket that was purchased by Glenn Kirkland in order to come see her, and emails that were exchanged. I have not been able to find either one of these. I feel like these would be released as part of the evidence. And finally, the last part is we're told by Jagmeet Singh that this investigation was thorough, yet they're refusing to release the actual report itself to the public. Why are they refusing to release the report? If there's nothing to hide and she did everything right, and she didn't do it, and she didn't, stalk him, didn't harass him or any of that, then why, in fact, are they refusing to release the report to the public? Everything about it just seems a little suspicious to me. So between the two, I find more inconsistencies, though, with Christine Moore's side of the story. And let's not forget that Christine Moore has been involved in, I think now this would be her third different, like this one is her, the accuser, but this would be about the third time she's been involved in something dealing with sexual harassment. It was back in 2014 where she said she ended up sleeping with a Liberal MP, and then she didn't really want to, but she froze when she got back to his hotel room, yet she provided him with the condom, and ended up getting 2 Liberal MPs kicked out of their caucus. So that was a little weird. She's responsible just weeks before these allegations against her were leveled. She was responsible for bringing forward what was going on with Aaron Weir. And it seemed like Aaron Weir's biggest crime was the fact that he was a close talker and he wasn't good at picking up social cues with people. So she's been involved in a few of these, and so it seems suspicious when you're involved with so much. So those are just a few last minute thoughts that I had when talking about Christine Moore and this whole situation that she's going down that went down with her. So the first thing I want to get into today is I want to discuss a little bit about the cabinet shuffle that ended up going on in Trudeau's government. So hold on, that's coming up later right here. All right, so I've put together this little chart here about everybody that was moved and some of the new people that have come in. Let me just make sure that it actually fits in. It's hard to see. All right. Anybody in the chat, if any part of the, hold on, just give me a second. Is anything being blocked right now? I'm just going to quickly check it out for myself, and then we'll. Okay, so a little bit. I'll see what I can do, and I'll move this around a little bit. Actually, I know what I'll do. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm going to take away the chat and my webcam for this, so that way you can see everything on here that we're looking at. So we're starting off really primarily down here in the bottom one here, because these are people who are already members of cabinet that have been moved around. So names are on the bottom, and their positions they have been moved to on the top. So as we see down here, we have Dominic LeBlanc, who's been moved from the Ministry of Fisheries, Ocean and Canadian Coast Guards to Internal Affairs. Melanie Joly, she was previously the Heritage Minister of Canada, and she actually, her position she was moved to was a downgrade. This is Minister of International Development and La Francophonie. Now, this is because Melanie Joly has done a disastrous job when we're talking about the Heritage Minister. Let's not forget that this was the woman who approved it was either a 6 or an 8 million ice rink on Parliament Hill that you couldn't have food, couldn't have drinks, and couldn't play hockey on. So who really wants, and you have to reserve the time for it. You can't just go out on your own time. So it was an absolute disaster, and she hasn't done much for Canadian heritage right now. So she got moved out of there. We have Jim Carr, the Minister of International Trade, and he was moved from Natural Resources, and he's actually replacing the man on the right. We see François-Philippe Champagne. He was the previous Minister of International Trade, who's been moved to Infrastructure and Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. So we have that, and then the other one is actually who was previously the Minister of Natural Resources is Armjit Sohi, and he's been moved to the Minister of Natural Resources. Now this would put him in control of the pipeline that is being built, the Kinder Morgan pipeline. Now the thing is though, is we have he's being moved from Infrastructure and Communities over to the Minister of Natural Resources. So this would put him in control of the pipeline. But this is a guy that has done next to nothing when it came to infrastructure, and now he's being put in control of our pipeline. I don't exactly have a lot of I don't really feel very confident with him in that position. But I think one reason that Trudeau ended up doing this is that Armjit Sohi is from Alberta, so I think he's trying to do this to act as if he is actually putting some care into the Alberta pipeline, but there's really nothing he's going to do about it. And we have a few people that are moving into new positions. They are getting promotions, they were regular MPs, and they're moving into ministry. So we're going to go from right to left on this one. So this way. So as we can see here, we've got Pablo Rodriguez, and he's been moved. He was the chief government whip, and he's being moved into the Minister of Canadian Heritage. This is taken over for Melanie Joly, and not really too much to say on the man right now. Then we also have Jonathan Wilkinson, who is he's taking over for what's his name, Dominic LeBlanc in the Ministry of Fisheries, Oceans, and Canadian Coast Guards. We have Philomena Tassi, who is the new Minister for Seniors. Now, this is a new ministry altogether, so our government is actually getting just a little bit bigger. We have Mary Ng. I honestly don't know how you pronounce that last name, but she's Minister of Small Business and Export Promotions. This is a ministry that was already in place, but it's getting sort of a makeover. It was formerly the Ministry of Small Businesses and Tourism, and that was under the control of, if we see here down at the bottom left, Bardish Jagger. And but she was doing that position as well as the leader of government in the House of Commons. So she's continuing her position as leader of the government in House of Commons, but giving up the ministry. And then we have Bill Blair. Now, this is an interesting one. We have Bill Blair, Minister of Border Security and Organized Crime Reduction, and this is an altogether new position. Now, let's not forget that not too long ago, Trudeau was saying, and his government have been saying, how there's no border crisis. There's absolutely no border crisis, nothing for Canadians to be worried about. Yet he's created this new position, saying the Minister of Border Security. So clearly they don't believe this. Clearly they don't believe that there is something wrong with the border. Or at the very least, they realize that Canadians have a problem with what's going on at the border. So this whole thing, this whole idea, hold on, I'm just going to bring back my webcam and browser. So this whole situation here, what's going on in there, is absolutely funny. It's Trudeau once again contradicting himself when discussing these issues. Now, also on top of this, the organized crime reduction. This, to me, definitely has something to do with the crime rate that's skyrocketed in Toronto, because it's just an absolute shit show in Toronto. We're having people that are getting shot every day. We have people that are getting stabbed, not to mention the rise in sexual assaults, regular assaults, and plenty of other crimes that are going on down in Toronto. So this is another position that is being brought in because of the Trudeau government has been unable to A, control our borders, and B, unable to reduce the crime rate that is going on. And this is what ends up happening when you implement the sort of policies that Trudeau and his government is implementing. They definitely are, despite the fact they hold the name Liberal, this is a progressive, a far-left government that we have right now. So the type of policies that they're introducing is absolute crap, because it doesn't actually do anything. It allows them a lot of virtue signaling, as we can see from our budget, because the budget was just absolutely terrible. It was god awful. All it did was virtue signal to everybody that they didn't know what the hell they were doing. But, gender was a big issue with it. Infrastructure, which is one of the big plans with Justin Trudeau's government. There was next to nothing in there when it came to the budget. When it came to the budget for infrastructure, we're talking maybe like a 1% increase over the rest of the term that Justin Trudeau is in office. So they're doing absolutely nothing there. But on top of this, a lot of the people that have caused Trudeau to gain, like his government has caused them embarrassment in the past, they're staying in position. Bill Morneau hasn't been changed. Harjit Singh, who is the Minister of Defense, he hasn't been changed. And let's not forget that he caused some controversy during the India trip. And then Ahmed Hussein has not been changed. And Ahmed Hussein has been absolutely terrible these past, especially recently, about what's going on in the border crisis. And he's just, even though they're claiming that the Conservatives are playing a game of fear and division, it's absolutely bullshit, and they're not doing anything for our border. And we're going to get a little more into our border in just a minute, actually, because there's something interesting that's going on with there. I see I have someone in the chat. Oh. Ah, hello, Bold. How's it going? On a Sunday, bro. Don't get no better. You know it, brother. By the way, Bold, you and I, we got to do a live stream again soon. I know I missed the one on the Mattis file the other day, so we'll schedule something very soon. But what we're talking about when it comes to the border situation is, well, recently the Conservative Party of Canada ended up putting out an ad. And this ad ended up getting taken down after some social lashback. So what this is it was this right here. Oop, hold on. There we go. So as we can see, it says Trudeau's holier than thou tweet causes migrant crisis. Now he needs to fix what he started. And as you can see on here, a little quote. It was actually a quote by the Financial Post. So as we can see here, in the background, we've got a broken fence, which is signaling how our border is broken. It's the idea that we're just letting anybody pass without any care. So that's just, as you can see right here. Wow, that was a bad circle. And then we've got Justin Trudeau's tweet on the ground as someone is walking over it, and we got this man right here. Now, what has really caused the controversy more than anything, of course it has to do with the border, but more than anything, it has to do with this guy right here. This guy that they're showing as, they're showing him to be a black individual. Now, why that's causing controversy is because they're trying to, everybody is claiming it's a racist ad. It's a racist tweet that was put out. But there doesn't seem. The thing is about this, though, is because they're saying, well, it's just black people rushing to the border, blah, blah, blah. You know the usual ways that the SJWs and people of their ilk end up freaking out about it. The thing is about this is an actual photo that was taken of a man crossing our border. This is not somebody that they just put in there for no reason. They actually went to a real photo, and unfortunately I forgot to pull it up before I started here. So I don't know if I'll be able to find it while I'm live streaming. But this was an actual photo taken of a man that was crossing our border, and this was the actual photo itself taken from behind. And all they did is they clipped it, they put it on to this ad here, and they put it out. But this has caused a great amount of lashback. So because of this, the Conservatives ended up taking down this tweet that they put out. And this is actually one of my big issues that I've had, that I've stated many times while I've been throughout the podcast, that I have with the Conservative Party of Canada. And it has to do with the fact that the Conservative Party of Canada never sticks to their guns, and they back down on their principles, because border security is one of the big ones that they have a problem with right now. And it makes absolute sense. Why? I mean, we have too many people crossing our border, and nothing is being done about it. But when they got a little bit of social lashback, which is definitely coming from the Liberal Party side, it was some lashback by people in the Liberal government. It was some lashback by people that support the Liberal government and who are generally on the left, so probably some NDP too. Instead of sticking to their guns, they backed down, they took down this tweet, and I believe they also made an apology about it, about how, it was sorry for being so offensive. But this is them giving into the game that people on the left wing of politics want to play. This is exactly what they're doing. By backing down and apologizing for it, you're admitting that you've done a bad thing. You're admitting that it was offensive. But all they doing was showing the truth. I mean, a lot of people have been trying to say that this is not a big, that Justin Trudeau's tweet is not responsible whatsoever for bringing in this group of people. But it absolutely is, because it also came very strategically just a day or two after Trump introduced his ban from certain countries. And this ban meant that certain people were no longer going to be available. He was also talking around that point of taking away the temporary protective status. So when Justin Trudeau put out that tweet, that's when we started to see the rise in people coming across the border. But this is also what ends up happening when the media is not being truthful with how they present themselves. I believe it was actually with my talk with Concan, who is in the chat right now, I believe. I will check that out in just a minute. During my talk with her, we were discussing how the media has been showing lots of families crossing our border. Every time they want to show what's going on at the border, well, here's a family that's running away from America. But the thing is we have a lot more individual men crossing our border, and this is where, if we are going to have crimes that are committed, it's more likely to come from these people, single men that are coming into our country, rather than family men that are coming into our country. But the thing is too, is these single men crossing the border is a much larger amount than the families that we're seeing crossing our border. The families, sure, they make up a certain percentage, but we're having a lot more individuals that are making this crossing. And when we're not being honest about this, we're just leading ourselves down a path that we don't want to go down. We've already seen the effects in Germany when they've done this. We've already seen the effects in France when they've done this. We've seen the effects in Sweden when they've done this. And it's not had good results. And this is also why I push back when people talk about the idea that it's like, well, actually more citizens commit crimes than immigrants. Well, that might be true when you look at it a certain perspective. There are more citizens that live inside the country. So, yes, they'll commit more crimes in total. But when we're talking about the percentage, when we break it down into demographics, then actually this is not true. And it is these groups that come in, these immigrant groups that come in, that will commit more crimes per capita. And that's a very important way to look at it, is per capita rather than total. Because even if you have a larger group that commits more crimes, if per capita another group commits more crimes, then this means per 100,000. That is a big difference. And one way this is looked at is the murder rate in America, where the black population makes up, I think, 13% of America's total population, yet they have a much larger per capita murders when it comes to when it comes to murder. The black population commits more crimes per capita, which means that these smaller group of people are committing more of the crimes. Very important thing. Now, this is just an example, and I'm sure some people get pissed off just me bringing that up, but what the hell? It's the truth, and that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to quickly go to the chat before we continue on with this story. Hello. How we doing today, little gray cells and Concan? And also, we got A Soul. All the king's horses and all the king's men will never put Trudy's pink socks together again. You're sweet, Concan. What a great day for live stream. Two of the most patriotic men in Canada. That's very sweet. She also make a reference to Little Gray Cells, which, by the way, if you have not gone to check out these channels, then please do so. If you have not gone to check out Little Gray Cells, or if you haven't subscribed to Little Gray Cells, you haven't subscribed to Concan, please do so. Bold Like a Leopard is also really good. And I'm sorry, Ace Soul, I don't know if you produce content. I'll have to check you out after I'm done on this. But the other thing is, too, when we're discussing the border crisis, is there's been recent changes that have been made. Right now, we have the border agency to announce new alternatives to immigration detentions. More GPS, voice reporting, and more community monitoring to be used instead of holding centers. So let's check this out. Actually, who was this by? I thought I saw... Oh, Kathleen Harris. For a second, I thought it said Kathleen Wynne. Not kidding. Okay, Canada's border agency is set to announce changes aimed at releasing more refugee claimants and other foreign nationals safely into the community while their immigration status is being resolved. An expanded framework for alternatives to detention will provide a risk-based national consistent program for individuals deemed suitable for release, according to the Canadian Border Service Agency. Agreements with third-party service providers, including the John Howard Society, has been signed to track people's releases to the community with conditions. Details of the changes are expected to be announced in coming days. And this is always something that concerns me when they talk about details will be released later on, which means they don't really have a plan. This is actually something that was funny, just a little bit off topic, that happened with Catherine McKenna recently when she was talking about the carbon tax. Is people started, when she was on live television, people started asking her questions about it, and she couldn't really answer the questions, which means they don't have a plan. But the thing is, too, is they're talking about how they're going to be released safely into the community while their immigration status is being resolved. Well, the problem with this, too, when you're going to do something like that, is you're releasing people. Let's just say that they release them. Then they decide that their immigration status doesn't warrant them staying and they have to be sent back, which is really hard to believe considering how the government has sent back less than 1% of the people who have crossed our borders. But then they get released into the community. Then they can disappear into that community. They can disappear deeply, and then it'll be difficult to find them again. The problem is, too, with this is the fact of how long it says it's going to take people in order to in order to finally get released back in before they can figure out what their status is. A lot of the numbers I have heard is 2.5 years. 2.5 years. And in that time, we don't know who these people are. We don't know what their history is. They can come in and they can, during that time, they'll be receiving government assistance, which means welfare. And then we also don't know who they're associated with. If they're coming in associated with, say, a gang from the U.S., then they're going to come into Canada and get associated with the Canadian chapters as well, which is a danger. Or they go down and they start committing their own sort of crimes. Now, of course, you can't just assume this is going to be for every single one who comes across the border. But the point is that we're already seeing this. In fact, not long ago, we were hearing about how there were some people that were coming across the borders that were getting caught with child porn, and there were pedophiles that were getting stuck there, so that were getting caught there. Now, what ended up happening to these, I don't really know, but I'm pretty sure these people at least ended up getting sent back. But the point is, we're letting these people into Canadian society, and the government of Canada is supposed to put the people's welfare, the citizens' welfare, first. But this is not what is going on. And also, I came across a video just today, actually, that we're going to quickly take a look at. And it's this one here. Hold on, give me a second. Get it all set up. We're all set up. Alright.
I know how to pay for rental, my food, my phone bill, and my car insurance, everything. So I don't know what's the Canadian dollar. It's the
So that one right there was just talking about it's asylum seekers receiving welfare checks. So this is coming in off our dime, off the Canadian dime right now. And I don't know what was going on with the background music. I think that's from a Disney movie. So my guess is somebody had the news on while their kids were watching something. But I just think that was awesome. What was it? Hold on. Let's just listen to that song.
I know how to pay for rental, my food, my phone bill, and my car insurance, everything. So I don't know what's the Canadian dollar. It's the
So I really don't know. I can't remember what Disney song that is, but I thought that was funny when I was listening through, and I started picking that up. But the point is on that too is that they're pretty much it's being suggested that these that the border crossers are not receiving enough from the government. The government isn't helping them out enough. But this is really, if anything, it's the Canadian taxpayers that are helping them out. And I have a bit of a problem when people who immigrate to the country and then want to live off the welfare system are then complaining about how much they get off the welfare system. I mean, I know it's difficult with that. And this is actually why I believe that in some ways Justin Trudeau expanded the Canadian Child benefit plan. I mean, we're already going through enough it's Little Mermaid. Thank you, Kanye. Yeah, that's what it was. It was Little Mermaid. But with the expansion of the Canadian Child Benefit Plan, this means you're getting more money, that people get more money for more children. Now, a lot of these people that come from cultures where it is typical to have a lot more children. I mean, the average Canadian family is, I think, 2.1 children, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But a lot of these other ones that come in, they'll have 4 or 5 kids, sometimes more. I mean, I don't know how much more, but this is something that we're hearing about all the time, about how they have a lot of children. So this will means that the government of Canada will give them more money because of this, along on top with the welfare checks. What was the other thing about that? Oh, and then during his announcement video, Trudeau was talking about how you're going to get this money completely tax-free. Well, it's the tax money that is paying for it, so no, it's not tax-free. The government might not be taxing it, but it came from taxes, so it's kind of redundant. The thing I thought was a little funny about it is that Trudeau's announcement on Twitter, he says, moms and dads, now you have more help, blah, 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 blah. But wasn't it his government that didn't allow people at service, the government service centers, to use those pronouns, that you couldn't use mother and father anymore because it wasn't inclusive enough? Just Trudeau going back on his word on everything. Just going back on absolutely everything he ever talks about. And alrighty, so actually, this next one's going to get a little bit interesting. Before we go there, we're going to go to the chat. I use my phone for the chat. Let's see. Oh boy, you guys have been talking a lot since I've last been on. How wonderful it is to have an entire position dedicated to making sure the world's criminals are welcome with open arms and welfare here in Canada. You're funny, Concan. You're really funny. Where is your lovely show? Need to start streaming, Concan. Invitation open if interested. You ever want to join my channel? You should do that. You should do that, Concan. You should put out more content. I really like the stuff that I've seen on your YouTube channel so far. I was at Pride Parade yesterday in Halifax. My skills at getting those videos off the camera onto the computer are lacking substantially. Canadians need to get busy. More screwing, please. Hey, soul. Oh, I like that. Hey, Mad Dodge, how you doing? Oh, by the way, Mad Dodge, you got your wrench. I hope you're happy now. If my terrible tech skills can be used, let me know. I will let you know on that. Also, because I know what you were saying about in the end of your live stream, how you're hoping to have call-ins. If you need my help with that, let me know as well. Oh, by the way, Mad Dodge, I will be returning to the Red Eye stream soon. I'm mostly what it's been lately is I don't open Discord soon enough, and then I don't see when you're going live, and then I'm halfway, you're halfway through or something. I'm missing it. I will be making a reappearance on the Red Eye live very soon. Or I guess you're doing on your main channel, Mad Dodge Productions. Okay, so the next story I wanted to get into gets very interesting. So I noticed a tweet that was put out by, it was the Toronto Police Service, I believe. Yeah, Toronto Police, about a week ago. Now this tweet was cryptic, but it was concerning, and we finally have an answer to what was going on. So, am I on the wrong one? There we go. Can you all see? Yeah, perfect. It was this one. He says, we are responding to an unconfirmed, uncorroborated piece of information related to the GTA. As a result of this information, you will see increased number of police officers throughout the day, and specifically in downtown. So I don't know about the rest of you, but when I saw that, I was a little nervous about what they're talking about. It doesn't give enough information, but I was wondering, did they have a lead on a possible terrorist attack? And it turns out, yes. Yes, that was exactly what it was. This article out of the Post Millennial says, exclusive, Toronto heightens security over potential rental van terror attack. The Post Millennial has received an exclusive leak from an anonymous source that U-Haul issued an international memo yesterday of an OPP counterterrorism request. So this article is about a week ago. I only noticed it recently, so I want to talk about it. So this is what the leak that they're talking about. Yeah, you can see it. And of course, they're being protective of it. I understand completely, but it says, I just got off the phone with an Ontario Provincial Police to get the details on the note below. Right now, the information is very limited, but basically they have an informant provided a tip regarding an upcoming attack using a rental vehicle in the next couple days in Toronto. No additional information is available at the time, indicating whether it is real, what kind of vehicle, etc. I am asking that you send all Toronto locations a copy of the suspicious activity brochure and a reminder of the executive to execute to our programs a meaningful assurance, meaning MA on speakerphone. I am sending this in a separate email now that you are welcome to forward to your team. Please have AFMs distribute the dealers as well. So as the Post Millennial ends up saying, they have the full memo in their possession. But this is actually what concerns me the most about this, and I understand that police have to keep certain things from us at certain times, and government officials have to, because of if they're doing an operation, they can't really give out the information and out their whole plan. But what really to me bugged me about this was the fact that they had information that a van could be driven down and used once again as another weapon, which we've seen, well, we've even seen it in Toronto over the last couple of months, but we also have seen it used to atrocious degrees over in France. I mean, the attack on Nice was just absolutely awful. I think we had something like 87 people that ended up getting killed, if I remember correctly. And the fact that the Toronto police were not warning citizens to stay away from certain locations because of this is concerning to me. Again, I understand certain things have to be kept secret, but they were putting our citizens in danger, the Toronto citizens in danger of possibly, if they couldn't stop the terrorist attack, which I believe they have, then anyone who is outside in public in these areas could be have been the victim of one of these attacks. And I honestly don't think I can think of anything really that much scarier than that. And this falls back into place with the increase in violence that we're seeing in Toronto. Now, most of that, as far as I can tell, is gang violence. It seems to mostly be gang violence, but this is on a whole nother level. This is not just gang violence. That is where generally that is people targeting other gangs and people or gangsters or members. But now these are people that are going to go after our citizens. And the police did not issue any more warning than that. It's a cryptic message. I don't know what sort of announcement they put out in Toronto, but that was where I saw it. I saw it on Twitter, which I thought was very concerning because not that many people have Twitter. Not that many people have Twitter. So it's a little bit concerning when they're not willing to give out all the information or give out the appropriate information for people to be kept safe. And so when I came across that, it just kind of made me shake my head. I couldn't believe that they were willing to. I couldn't believe that they were really willing to hide the details or not give a proper warning to the people in the sake of carrying out this of executing this operation. So I wanted people to at least be aware of that was going on. If you happen to find yourself in Toronto at that day and you heard about this is what the whole situation was about. But the other thing is the post-millennial is this is, as far as I can tell, I only took notice of it a few months ago, but it's not really part of the mainstream media. But I didn't hear about any of this in the CBC. I didn't hear about this in the National Post. I didn't hear about this on CTV or Global. Now, I don't actually check out CTV and Global all that much. But these other sources, I didn't see anything about it. Maybe I just missed it because I didn't end up... maybe I just ended up missing it because I didn't see the story that day. But just very, very concerning to me. And while we're on this about Toronto, this is actually a story that's going back to talk about Andrea Horwath. Now, Andrea Horwath was, she ended up, is leader of the Ontario NDP party. And since she lost, first of all, when she lost, she ended up pretty much blaming, not her specifically, but members of her party were blaming people of Ontario who didn't vote for them as voting against their interests. So apparently we don't know any better. We need the NDP party to tell us how we should vote and what is in our best interest, which when you have a party that wants to expand government so much, of course that's what they're going to think. But ever since now that they're the official opposition party, they are taking every opportunity to talk about how radical Doug Ford's party is, and they keep making reference to people like Tanya Granick-Allen, who isn't even a member of the party anymore. She was thrown out before Doug Ford was even put into office. So the fact that they're making reference to this is absolutely ridiculous. But the most recent thing that they've done, and I couldn't believe that Andrea Horwath put this out, but this is again going back to showing how her party is just absolutely taking on a new level. It's just on a whole other level. Is she ended up putting out this tweet and ended up putting out this, not just a tweet, she ended up putting out a message in the press, but she was talking about, she said, Conservative Minister Michael Tibolo's comments this morning about wearing a bulletproof vest at Jane and Finch is inexcusably racist. Anyone who would say something so divisive has no credibility to continue to oversee Ontario's anti-racism directorate. So yeah, this guy Michael Tibolo was going on a ride along with the Toronto police, and he was going on a ride along at night. Yet, and this is what he said. He ended up putting out saying that, yeah, I ended up wearing a bulletproof vest while on this area, which in Jane and Finch, now the whole, as I understand, the whole area of Jane and Finch isn't bad, but it's got pockets of really bad areas around Jane and Finch. So, and also he did this. He put on this bulletproof vest at the recommendation of the Toronto Police Service. They were the ones who told him that if you're going to ride along with us, you got to wear this for your own protection. And so when he puts this out, she's trying to claim as if it's incredibly racist. Now, he never said anything about race. He didn't say, I'm going into an area with a bunch of Asians or a bunch of black people, or a bunch of Arabs, so I'm putting on my bulletproof vest. He just said, I'm in this area, I'm wearing my bulletproof vest. But no, it's incredibly, this is inexcusably racist. I don't believe many people are buying into this because have people forgotten what the NDP is? Who's a member of the NDP? Who's a member of Andrea Horwath's NDP? And if you do, let's take a look. Let's take a look. Because they are full of cop haters, veteran haters, poppy haters, Hitler quoters, and Marxist lovers. This is the NDP that we have at our disposal right now. Now, this article was put out May 26, 2018. But it's just going on to show how it has one of her members is Taslim Riaz, and she ends up putting out this quote by Hitler: if you don't like a rule, just follow it, reach on to the top, and change the rule. And then her claim was that, oh, I had no idea that I did this. I couldn't believe it. In fact, I'm pretty sure she started trying to suggest that she got hacked. But she says, like, I have no memory of this. You would remember if you quoted Adolf fucking Hitler. You really would. She ended up issuing a statement that said, I'm horrified that an inappropriate meme was on my Facebook page. I don't recall sharing it and wouldn't have done so intentionally. Bullshit. Especially for what they're talking about. About not liking a rule, reach the top, and change the rule. This is exactly what I believe she had in mind at that time. And it's not just that. We have all sorts of other people in there. There was Chandra Pasma, who was active in Ottawa. And she ended up talking about how Ontario doesn't need jobs. That's not the solution to what Ontario needs. Yes, it is. Yes, it really is. More jobs would be loved by everybody. We're not having enough jobs produced right now, so we could really use some more jobs. It's absolutely ridiculous. And let's see what else we got over here. Yeah, and then we also have... was it the same person? Is that who we're talking about? Yeah, I believe it is. Hold on 1 second. Computer's going a little slow. Yeah, Riaz also, when talking about veterans, ended up saying that in Afghanistan they were slaughtering innocent men, women, and children. And that our ballots turned into bullets against our Muslim brothers and sisters in Afghanistan and Libya. I'm sure she meant Libya, but Libya. And their whole excuse is anti-war activists. And it's only in this part where Andrea Horwath starts talking about freedom of speech. Anything else is all about hate speech. But now she's just saying, oh, well, you know, freedom of speech and due process, so important. Well, where was that concern when other people are going through this situation? Love or hate Patrick Brown, she was one of the first people to jump on saying Patrick Brown needs to be thrown out of office, thrown out of his caucus for what he went through before. This was within hours of his announcement of when the story came out up against Patrick Brown. And then, oh yes, then we have Laura Kamaker, and she is a self-described Marxist, and said she refused to wear in 2014. She refused to wear a poppy. Describes Remembrance Day as war glorification. Not that we're looking after, we're remembering our veterans who fought and died for us, and the ones who still make the sacrifice, but instead that it's war glorification. And her quote is, I just wear my peace button on my jacket as always and wait for the collective brainwashing to blow over. When our masters give the signal, everyone can take off the fake poppy made with prison labor and create a bit more landfill, and another annual ritual of war glorification comes to an end. This is the NDP party right now. Oh, and by the way, it was Laura Kamaker who said that she thanked everybody who voted for the NDP, but those who didn't vote for him were voting against their own self-interest, people who voted for Doug Ford. Let's see. There's a few other stuff in here, but you know what? I think I've shown enough. This is exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about the NDP. But they always like to show how they always love to talk about how the conservatives are divisive, how the conservatives are radicals. Now, I I'm sure you may find some on there that maybe could fit the profile, but not nearly to the same extent as the NDP and where Andrea Horwath has taken them. I don't even know how Andrea Horwath is still in part of the party, because she has been through, what is this, her third election now that she hasn't won anything. And honestly, I don't even think Andrea Horwath really was the reason that the NDP reached official opposition status. I'm pretty sure it has more to do with the fact that people were just so done with Kathleen Wynne. I mean, she went from 55 seats down to 7. That's got to say something. So I don't think it's really been anything to do with Andrea Horwath. And usually I won't go this route, but if you really want to know how Andrea Horwath is, look at her son. Jesus Christ. Have you seen this guy? This guy is absolutely ridiculous looking. And let's not remember that for all the talk that she loves about how conservatives are racist, sexist, blah, 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 her son went out in public when she was campaigning, wore a crew kabanger, which pretty much says a girl that allows the whole group to fuck her. Essentially, this is who she's produced, and this is going to be the NDP. Personally, so far, I haven't had a reason to dislike Doug Ford that much. There's certain things that he's done that maybe there's one or two things maybe that I could maybe say, meh, I don't like the way you went about that. Personally, I'm not crazy about so far. Like, I like that he's rolled back the radical sex education, even though the NDP wants to keep it in, written by a pedophile. I would prefer if he just was stuck a little more to the guns, because things have been a little confusing with that. They're saying, okay, we're going to roll it back to 1998. Oh, you know what we'll keep some stuff in. So I just wish that it's gone a little more smoothly. But all in all, so far, not too many complaints against Doug Ford. And actually, before I get into my final story of the day, I will just quickly go to the chat, see what everyone's talking about. Ooh, we have Ends been purple. I like Tanya Greta. She's a pit bull. She definitely, she was one person that stuck to her guns. She was not interested in, she wasn't going to let anybody push her around. I wasn't sure about Tanya Granick-Allen until I watched that first debate with her in the first leadership debate, and she really came out snapping and made her presence known. I was quite surprised, actually, with her. I'd only maybe a week before taken notice of her, and it wasn't anything really like the National Post, CBC, none of these really talked about her. It was actually just some random newspaper. But when she came out with fury. Well, you'll give her credit on that. Wow, I just looked at Andrea's son, daughter. Yikes! Yeah, absolutely, yikes. Are we? Yes, Graysos. Are we not literally bankrupt? Pretty much literally bankrupt. So the final thing that is going on these days is, Ontario's going bankrupt too, and this falls into that, actually, now you bring that up. Then the most recent thing that, this was actually released on July 17th, and it's talking about how Doug Ford, keeping with his promise, he is going to his Independent Financial Commission of Inquiry and External, he is going to, sorry, I screwed that up. Independent Financial Commission of Inquiry and External line-by-line audit of government spending. So this is something that Ford was talking about when he was running for office, that they're going to go through the books, and they are going to make sure that everything gets audited for the spending. So he's keeping with his promise, and you know what? Absolutely, you could do this. If anybody's taking a look at this year's Sunshine List, and the Sunshine List is a list of all public service employees that make over 100 grand a year, and there is a lot of them. I ended up downloading the PDF, or sorry, the Excel version, and holy crap, it was super long. There's also a picture of Ford holding it. Looks like a book. It's like this thick, about that thick, full of names and people where they work for. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, what will the Independent Financial Commission of Inquiry do? The inquiry will look back into Ontario's public finances and government account practices in order to have a clear idea of where taxpayers' money is being spent and inform the 2017-2018 public account. The inquiry will operate with complete independence from the Government of Ontario and is established under the Public Inquiries Act 2009. It will provide advice and recommendations to the province's current fiscal reality and budget positions for the current fiscal year 2018-2019 and beyond. The deadline for the inquiry's final report will be August 30th. The inquiry will be provided with a dedicated budget of staff resources necessary to meet this deadline. So far sounds pretty damn good if you ask me. Now, let's look into what we already know about these numbers. So when we're talking in their 2017 budget, the Liberals projected a balanced budget in Ontario for the fiscal years of 2017-2018, 2018 through 2019, and 2019 through 2020. And then just 1 year later, they changed that around to be a modest surplus of $600 million in 2017-2018, but followed by a deficit of $6.7 billion in 2018 through 2019, $6.6 billion in 2019 through 2020, and $6.5 billion in 2020 to 2021. Now that's a big change from what you're talking about just a year earlier about how much you're going to be costing Ontarians. And then this ended up getting looked at by the Auditor General, Bonnie Lysyk. And as it says, the Liberals had as Lysyk said, the Liberals had a deficit of $4.5 billion in 2017-2018, huge change from a moderate surplus. The year they claimed $600 million surplus, followed by a projected deficit of $11.7 billion in 2018 and 2019, or 75% higher than the Liberals predicted of $6.7 billion. And in the years of 2019 through 2020, it would be $12.2 billion deficit, or 85% higher than their predictions. And in the year 2020 through 2021, it would be $12.5 billion, 92% higher than the Liberals predicted. Wow. Ouch. How do you that bad at math? And then these numbers were more or less corroborated by Ontario's Financial Accountability Officer. And it says and their numbers were Liberals had a $3.6 billion deficit in 2017 through 2018. They had $11.8 billion in 2018 through 2019, $12.4 billion in 2019 and 2020, and $12.7 billion in 2020 to 2021. And talks for this was that both independent watchdogs concluded that the Liberals misreported the financial impact of the budget of Wynne's Fair Hydro plan to cut hydro rates by 25% and 2 government pension plans. This just shows how disastrous Wynne's plan was, because she was going to cut these hydro rates, but all she was doing was extending it into the future. So it would be later on, the people of Ontario would then get upcharged up the ass when it came to hydro. And people are already having problems with their hydro rates throughout Ontario. Many people talk about that. Now, luckily, that's something actually that people don't have to worry about in Ottawa, because they have Hydro Ottawa. They don't do Hydro 1, but a lot of people do, especially in the more rural areas, use the Hydro 1. So this plan was just absolutely terrible. And then on top of this, we were also she was literally lining the pockets. Our money, well, I guess I can't really say that about myself. The money was lining the pockets of these rich executives. We're talking about something around 12 to 15 executives. This is why Ford made some reference to the $6 million man. Now, some of the arguments against this that I've heard of people say, like, oh, well, it's going to cost even more now, because when you let people go, when you fire them, a lot of them have a severance package up worth a certain amount. So people are saying it will cost another $6 million. But this is actually, from what we can tell, this is a very small number to what we were going to get with the $6 million man still in office here. If Ford didn't do anything, we could guarantee about almost another 4 years of him in office, which is a lot more than $6 million. And then who knows, maybe he would have given him and his executives an even bigger raise after that in order to guarantee that they were even richer than they were before. The whole plan of Wynne was just an absolute disaster. So that's what we know when we're talking so far about just the budget. Now they're going to go through even more and go line by line and audit these books to see where they can save money. Now we'll see if Ford sticks to his guns and then he's going to find some way to give the money back to the people, because we've already seen how the federal government won't do this. Because back in March, there's something called March Madness, which is as they're approaching the end of the fiscal year, which begins in April, any departments that that have leftover money, if they don't spend the money, then that usually means the department gets cut the next year. So what they do is they just find reasons to spend this money on anything. And because of this, Trudeau and his government ended up buying tens of thousands of cell phones, new iPhones, new Androids, and all sorts of smartphones that they just spent and started handing around departments just for the sake of spending the money to make sure that they had the same amount next year or more. This is a terrible thing to do because it's our own money, our own tax money that is going into this, and all they're doing is now wasting our money just so that they can make sure that their budget is the same next year, even if they don't need it. This is what we've gotten so far under both the provincial Liberals and the federal Liberals. It's been absolutely atrocious, and quite simply, I'm done with it. I would love to see just once a sort of I would love to see a form of tax strike, and like sort of across the provinces, where the people of the Canadian citizens start deciding we've had enough of this shit. We're going to do a tax strike. And then they just stop paying their tax to the federal government just to make them sweat. I mean, if we're talking about thousands upon millions of Canadians who could do this, then you just know that the government would finally start listening to some of the problems that we're having. But I would love that, but I'm very skeptical as if that would actually happen, whether we can make that work. I don't believe it would. But who knows? Maybe we can organize something and get people, and then maybe finally the Trudeau government will listen to us, and they won't put out these atrocious budgets like they did for the 2018-2019 fiscal year, where it was just all this focus on race and gender and Barney and Elmo, all this focus on these sort of people, but there's no focus on the actual Canadian citizens themselves, no focus on the businesses, and more importantly, no focusing on the small businesses, which is extremely important. The small businesses already find it very hard to make it by. In fact, I remember just as the election was coming up, somebody sent me a message on Twitter. I'm not going to give the guy's name out because I'm also not going to give out where he's located, because he said that he's got some radical people around the area, and they're worried that maybe perhaps he doesn't want to get outed, sort of thing. But he was telling me that if he was a small business owner, if Ford did not win, then his business may actually have gone under. And so this person was very, very happy when Ford won, because now he could see some relief, where under the Liberals, then under the Liberals, he may have actually lost his business because he couldn't afford to pay the taxes, pay the people. But there's no focus when it comes to the Liberals or the NDP government on this sort of thing. This is also the problem, actually, a lot of people are having with the carbon tax, is that it's just going to focus on all the wrong people. They want to act like they're going after the big polluters. Well, they're not really going after the big polluters. They're going to have to go after the small businesses. And what about the farmers? These farmers are going to suffer greatly from it. And we've just seen the farming industry just going down. We've lost so many farmers just in the last 5 years alone. And this carbon tax is not going to do anything to help them. But it doesn't seem like it cares to Catherine McKenna. Doesn't seem it cares to Justin Trudeau. In order to in order for them to make themselves feel good, make themselves look good, they're going to stick with this carbon tax, which is another good thing that we have. We've got the maritime provinces, we have Ontario, we've got Saskatchewan, I believe. I believe it's Saskatchewan that are all starting to stand up against the carbon tax. We're starting to see a unified front. And if Alberta ends up voting back in Jason Kenney and the Conservative Party over there, then we're going to have a lot of provinces standing up against Ottawa, standing up against Justin Trudeau's carbon tax. So it's going to be great. I'm sure the people of Alberta are starting to get really fed up with Rachel Notley and what's going on over there. I'm sure she has done nothing to help the businesses. Actually, I saw a great cartoon the other day, which was the Alberta. It was like Alberta revenue, not revenue, investment department or something like that, and it's just got a skeleton with cobwebs on it, and over top it's got a picture of Rachel Notley and a picture of Justin Trudeau. It was great. It was absolutely great. Just talk about how there's no investments going in and out of Alberta. Oh, that's really funny. All right, we're gonna go to the chat one more time, and then I am out of here. Let's see what we all have to say. Esben Purple, she would do it in a PM. Well, the vag of the world, a literal hole. I think she talked about Andrea Horwath right there. Communist, little Gray Sills, communist. She likes brainwashing. Communists share everything. Let's see. Esben Purple, Quebec sex ed toddlers in training pants. Gross. Way to fudge the books. Sounds like balanced budget of Trudeau's government in 2018 according to Red Book. Just about. Now earliest balanced budget is 2050. Is that actually what they're predicting now? 2050? Oh crap. Oh man. So literally the government has made it that not only us, but our children now are going to be suffering from this. They're never going to be able to get out of this debt, especially if we keep going down this road. This is why we need to redo the way everything. We need to redo the way that we're borrowing. We need to start borrowing from the Bank of Canada again and getting away from these international banks that just charge us up the ass. If we could organize a tax strike, that would be amazing. Help corporate farms, bankruptcy, cheap land. Some of the young folks in Nova Scotia are starting to get it, but the old folks still watch CBC and believe everything they hear. Yeah, I know what you mean. A couple people that I associate with too are pretty much like that. They just watch their CBC or whatever CTV, and they just go along with the whole situation. I don't think they really look into this on their own. They don't look into the numbers. They don't look into sort of what's behind the policy. They just sort of take what they're told and they run with it. Marpaw puppy play red pill can knock out Halifax pride. Yeah, you were bringing that up in Little Gray Cell's stream. I remember about that. That's gross. The Marpaw, pretty much furries. I think you confirmed that for me. All the furries out there. And as I said in the chat there, the degeneracy never ends. According to economists, compounding deficits, ballooning debt, increasing interest. Yes, increasing interest is one of the big problems that I find. And it seems like the Bank of Canada is always raising their interest rates. Makes it a lot harder for the little guy to get out of their own debt, their own personal debt. All right, I think that's all I've got for you all today. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's always good to interact with everybody, and hope you enjoyed this talk. I know that the beginning may have been a little boring talking about the cabinet shuffle, but once again, it's a desperate attempt by Justin Trudeau to try and get more popularity for his government while we're coming up to election time, 2019. I mean, maybe midway through 2018, but this is the time when you start when you start campaigning for it. And between putting in a couple more Quebec MPs and a little more of Alberta, I think Trudeau's trying to gain support from there. And it's just not really going to work, especially not when he keeps the main culprits in Parliament. I mean, like the when you keep Catherine McKenna, when you keep Harjit Session, when you keep Bill Morneau, when you keep Ahmed Hussein, then that's all you're really going to get. These are the main faces of Trudeau's ministry, and that's all people are going to see. It doesn't matter if you move some new MPs into cabinet position. It doesn't matter if you shuffle around some minor people of the cabinet ministry. Of your cabinet, sorry, it doesn't make a difference. People see the main faces, and it's not going to make a difference, in my opinion. We'll end up seeing in the end whether Trudeau gets voted back in, but I have a feeling that we're going to see lots of manipulation this coming election. I really do. Oh, no more. Yeah, sorry guys. I think I have anything more for you today. No, nothing pulled up, nothing ready to go. Maybe I should just switch to what they call them, IRLs, just in real life, and just you can watch my whole day go by. And probably would be pretty boring for me. I mean, I usually spend it, if I'm not spending it researching, then I'm not doing much. So probably wouldn't be super interesting for y'all. All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a great day.